Hey all, Ron here from Military Images Magazine with a new episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail. I spent the weekend in Franklin, Tennessee at the Civil War Show. It's one of the best known Civil War shows. Lots of artifacts, including many images for sale. When I'm there with the magazine, I'm, of course, selling subscriptions. I'm meeting subscribers, meeting new subscribers. I'm also there to scan images that folks bring in. Some of those images make it into future issues of the magazine and here on YouTube. I want to share a group of 3 images that I scanned on the first day. And as you may have noticed in the headline, the keyword here is suck, the suck. So let me give you the images first. Take a look at those, and then we can talk more. Here's the first photograph, which is a rough looking patch of river, mountains in the background, a tree in the foreground, a beach type area, maybe a beach head. You can see some supplies. There's a man sitting on the ground and a rowboat or some sort of a skiff that's behind him. That's the first image in this group of 3. The second image now is the same scene. It's a little bit shifted because you can see more of the tree and you can see more of the shoreline area. Now we have a bunch more folks that are on the beachhead, including a man with a straw hat, some soldiers, a man with suspenders. And also, if you haven't already noticed, along that patch of river is a steamer, some sort of steamboat, which is in that rough patch of water. Now, here's the third image in the group, which looks like it's a slightly different view, and you can see a steamer pulled up alongside, a little bit of smoke coming out of the stacks, people milling around on the decks. And if you look at the pilot house on top, you'll see the name of the ship, the Bridgeport. On the back of all of these images, which are taken by a photographer attached to the Union Army of the Cumberland, the name The Suck pops up on all 3. So, what is the Suck? What is the Bridgeport? What is this all about? I did a little bit of looking around, went down the research rabbit hole to try to get some more information. And 2 images at the National Archives shed a little bit more light on the story. Here's an image, I'm guessing, made by the same photographer, that same similar scene of the bend in the river. And there's even a ship there, only this time, even more of the shoreline is exposed. You can see stacks of rope, which I can only imagine were used to moor ships as they were moving upriver. So that's an interesting image. A lot of it lines up, and we find out as a result of this that we're on the Tennessee River. So that's a useful bit of information. And then there's this image on the Tennessee River of the Bridgeport itself. Here is a full view of the transport. We now know, according to the description, that it's a transport steamer and it is on the Tennessee River. We can see a lot of timbers and things in the foreground. You can see the flags flying fore and aft, the same smokestacks, the same pilot house. All interesting, beautiful architectural details of the ship. So that led me with the name of the ship, the Bridgeport, the Tennessee River, the idea that there was something going on and there's something called the suck that's involved. I did some more research and got this interesting bit of information from a book called The Army of the Cumberland by Henry Sist, written in 1882. Before I read this passage to you, which is going to tell you what the suck is, I want to put this map from the West Point Military Atlas and pay attention to the river, that's the Tennessee River. Pay attention to the dotted line that moves on the left side of the map from Bridgeport, Alabama. The dotted line goes upriver, moves along. You'll see the words Cracker Line, which you students of the Civil War know. It is that thin supply line that was opened up for the besieged Army of the Cumberland during the end of the tenure of General Rosecrans and the arrival of Major General Ulysses S. Grant. Notice how that dotted line moves along the Tennessee, goes up to a place called Kelly's Ferry, where it abruptly ends and crosses overland to a place called Brown's Ferry, and then continues on into Chattanooga, where the Union Army is rebuilding itself to make its successful breakout in November of 1863. And so the area called the Suck is located around that Kelly's Ferry area, which is why they detoured across land to Brown's Ferry. So, armed with that knowledge, here's a description from the 1882 book, The Army of the Cumberland. Quotes, without driving back the entire of Bragg's, that's Braxton Bragg's Confederate Army, in Lookout and Chattanooga valleys, it was impossible to use the railroad from Bridgeport east in bringing up supplies. Editor's note, that's where we see the map. The wagon trains, let me continue. The wagon trains could no longer be depended on, and under the spur of necessity, Rosecrans, General William S. Rosecrans, was preparing a plan to utilize the river with boats. A new one had been built at Bridgeport, and another captured at Chattanooga had been repaired. By thus using the river, he could secure his supplies over a wagon road of only 8 miles from Kelly's Ferry via Brown's Ferry. The course of the Tennessee River at Chattanooga is due west. After passing the town, it flows south to the foot of Lookout Mountain, from which point it then sweeps after a short curve to the northwest, due north, forming here what is known as Moccasin Point. Crossing the river at the town, a road leads southwest across this point onto the other side, where the river, as it sweeps north, it reached at Brown's Ferry. Shortly after passing Brown's Ferry, the river again makes a sharp bend to the south, forming another point of land running northwardly. Across this point on the east bank, as the river passes south, is Kelly's Ferry. At the extreme angle of this bend, the river rushes through the mountains, which here crowd down closely, forming a narrow channel through which the waters rush headlong. This chasm is known as the Suck. The velocity of the water is so great that steamers in high water cannot stem the current at this point, which necessitated the landing of supplies at Kelly's Ferry and then hauling them overland across the bridge at Brown's Ferry to Chattanooga. So there you have the description in 1882 of the Suck and the Cracker Line and how supplies were unloaded from transports like the Bridgeport across land to get to the Union Army. So these images that I just shared with you, these 3 images showing what appears to be the Suck. You can see the rough waters in the distance in this particular image. These 3 images, to my knowledge, I have not been able to find them published anywhere. So you, my friends, are looking at the first publication of these images, to my knowledge, showing an area along the Tennessee River that was absolutely impassable by ships, therefore necessitating a shortcut across land for the famous Cracker Line. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail.